Folks,
Press.
we are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. I am one of your hosts, Alex Kammer. To me on stage, right, my left, I guess. I don't know. Bad Mike Battalato, my once-a-week work spouse. And below us, one of the premier lawyers, certainly one of the premier lawyers in our hobby, Gamehole Con's very own Alex Kammer.
Who has the most amazing flex behind him, because I've been here where he's at, and pretty much almost everything behind him I think is in shrink wrap. Am I correct?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, I only thought I was flexing with signed posters. This is. As a matter of fact, I got two of these from Alex. I got this one and that one from Alex anyway, so I can't flex. I have no flex here. Nothing.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. It's always great to kick it with you guys. We've got some interesting things going on in the hobby these days.
Well, we love having you on. We just we don't want to bother you. I mean, we would bother you every week if we could, but we don't want to bother you every week. But this was just I saw you posting about this online, and so many times when there's something that's happening, and this is obviously the legal battle between new TSR and WotC, is that people will go on, well, I'm not a lawyer and I can't say this. I'm like, well, we know a lawyer. So let's just have a lawyer talk about it, because that way we don't have to say we're not a lawyer and we don't know what we're talking about, because we don't. Most of the time, Eric and I have no clue what we're talking about. And we say that. We happily fess up to that. But in this case, we have an actual lawyer. And so we're gonna ask you a few questions and just have your opinion. Obviously, this is not legal advice to take to the bank or anything. This is just a bunch of guys sitting around shooting the shit. But one of them happens to actually be an attorney, and not just any attorney. He doesn't do traffic tickets, kids. This is one of Wisconsin's best here. So where do you want to start, Alex or Eric? What do you want to beat down Alex first about?
Oh no, listen. I think we're going to take Alex's time from him right now, and then we'll let him go for later. Later on, we're going to go through the TSR timeline for this bag of shit. But this whole issue here is dealing with and this is what confuses a lot of people. It's dealing with marks, which are trademarks, but they're also copyright artwork, which is a weird intersection that, I'll be honest with you, I don't fully understand how that works. So maybe Alex can give us a little background on that one, because I think that is a stickling point for a lot of people on this.
Well, okay. So with a couple of provisos in hand, in classic lawyer fashion, I will give you my caveats. One is that I do dabble in IP law, but I am not an IP lawyer. I do come across it in with my publishing company, with the publishing contracts with other people. So I do run into it, and also through the show. So I'm not completely ignorant, but I certainly would not hold myself out as an IP lawyer. You would be crazy to hire me to do something like that. And I also, while I have read the filings, I have not studied them in depth. I have not talked to counsel. I haven't seen any discovery, which I don't think there has been anyway.
Yeah.
So with that said, copyright and trademarks are very different things. Copyright is a species of intellectual property that attaches the moment the copyrighted material is created. You don't have to do anything to copyright your stuff. Once it's created, you have copyright protection. It comes automatically. Trademark is something that you have to apply for. And there's a federal agency that monitors that, and there's an application process. And so those are two different bodies of law entirely: copymark, trademark, trade dress. Those are different things entirely. But you're right, Eric. We have an intersection of both those things. And what's clear, from the commenting I'm seeing online, that's not that people aren't getting those facts. That for instance, the stuff that when Wizards of the Coast purchased TSR, they purchased all the copyright materials. All those copyrights went to them, and those then are theirs. And they don't have to do anything to maintain them. They don't have to do anything to update There's no mark to update. Those exist for them forever until they give you someone like me, for instance. I get a license. I have a license from Wizards of the Coast to use their copyright. It's a contract. Okay. You can contract away your copyrights, or you can share your copyrights. rights, but you can't. It's not something they just disappear over time. Over a lot of time they do. Of course, we have those copyrights sunset eventually, but within the period of time we're talking about, no copyright is sunset.
So now, here's what I find interesting, and I'm not going to ask you your opinion on anybody's legal counsel that's involved in this, but last summer, I think last August, or we found out about it last fall. New TSR announced that they had all these, they had taken or applied for all these I'm going to call them graphical trademarks of the old TSR, the wizard, the lizard man, the dragon medallion, all this stuff. But we found out, or if you look at the trademark office, they didn't actually file for the letters TSR until this past August, I think the 18th. So if you're applying for graphical representations of what would be TSR, but you never actually applied for the 3 letters TSR, I guess you never really trademarked TSR until this year. To me, that's confusing, because that seems like a brown ball that you wouldn't want to miss if you are building a company based upon a trademark.
I can't argue with that. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, for me, it's just I know that TSR2 dropped the ball when they let their trademark expire, but it's in the land grab that was going on last year. They apparently forgot to actually grab the plot of land that you would have built everything else upon. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. And now, these trademarks are in dispute because, as I understand it, Wizards of the Coast never filed to maintain the trademarks, therefore potentially putting them out in the wild. But as a layman and what little research and what I know about trademarks is, if trademarks are still in use, even if they aren't registered, if they're still being used, they still have protection.
That's correct as a general premise. You're absolutely right. Yes.
Okay. So now we're going to get more into, I guess, more legal opinions. If the visual trademarks are these visual marks? I'm not going to call them trademarks. These visual marks, are they protected by copyright?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so if they're protected by copyright, I don't understand how somebody else can trademark them.
Well, so that's a different test.
Okay.
Copyright has, the protections are limited. Trademark, when you actually apply for a trademark, you have to show uniqueness, and you have to show it in marketplace use and a bunch of other things like that. So it's just a different order of remedies when there's a violation. What Wizards did here with the old, basically we'll call them, there's a group, the TSR marks. I haven't looked back at when each was set to sunset, and then how long they had sunset, and then but you're absolutely right. They continue to use these in the marketplace. You can hop over to drive-through right now and buy any number of old TSR products, and that money is going to Wizards, and they're selling them through one bookshelf. So I'm a little at a loss as to what the business, what the legal strategy is here, and the business plan for new TSR, which I don't think will be TSR for very much longer.
Yeah, well, I mean, when new TSR snagged these visual trademarks and snagged, they thought TSR, I remember being initially told that they had grabbed them under Wisconsin trademark law and were applying for federal trademarks, which caused me to then research and realize that you can actually do state trademarks, but they're very limited in their scope.
Yeah.
Right? It would be limited.
You basically there's no commission. I have the place I'm in right now. It's called the Free House Pub. It's registered as a Wisconsin trademark. We also then went on to get federal trademark protection. But what it is, you just apply for it with the state of Wisconsin or state of wherever. They send you a certificate. That's it. It's basically something you maybe can send with a cease and desist order, and someone might buy it, but it has actually there's no teeth behind it at all. Federal marks are the ones that that are actually actionable when someone uses your trade dress or your trademark. State ones don't offer virtually no remedies.
Well, from what little I saw about state trademarks is that they may carry weight within the state so long as there's no federal trademark. But if there's a federal trademark would basically trump any state trademark. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't, for example, go to someone in Indiana and say, hey, you can't operate a tavern called the Free House Pub. They can just give me the finger because they say, well, I have now a federal mark, which so I can. But when I had just a Wisconsin mark, all it did is protect things, my ability to use the name of this bar restaurant here in Wisconsin.
Okay. So now the other question: what's the difference between trademark and trade dress?
Trade dress is the stuff that you build and that you associate with your brand. For example, the pastel colors that Taco Bell uses. So it's all that stuff that is that's you don't actually register it. It's just that everyone looks at it and they know what that is. So all the trade dress cases that are out there, and most of them are for restaurants, and most of them are from people who open up a restaurant and try to make it look like it's a Taco Bell or McDonald's or something like that. And that's a classic trade dress case. So and that's actionable. That's just a discovery based kind of case, fact based where you take photos of the alleged imposter and you file your action. And usually it's for injunctive relief. Usually there aren't any money damages, but there can be. But usually it's just to keep people from making their shop look like your shop.
Fair enough. Mike, you have anything to throw?
Yeah, I have one thing. So I'm just going to throw a couple of general things at you. So, and this is all in your opinion, obviously, Alex. So, in your opinion, what's the difference between what new TSR is doing and the reason WotC is coming down on a ton of bricks, and the fact that TSR was used as a publishing label for a few years by Jason Elliott, and they published a few items under that name, and there didn't seem to be any issues, problems. Why is WotC now deciding they're going to bring the hammer down? What did new TSR do to cause this? Because for those of you who don't know and haven't been keeping up, WotC filed suit against new TSR before new TSR filed suit against them. And Eric found this out when he checked out the filing dates. So that they were already being sued before they decided, well, we're going to sue you back. What do you think was the catalyst here?
That's a good question. I don't know for sure. I haven't spoken to the WotC's counsel but I think it was the noise that new TSR or TSR3 or whatever you want to call them was making about we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Whereas TSR2 or Jason Elliott TSR was actually working informally with some people at WotC. And it was clear that what Jason was going to do, what they were doing was not going to trammel on any of Wizards of the Coast's actual intellectual property. And Jason understood what he could and couldn't do. Wasn't making claims, we're going to bring back Star Frontiers and stuff like that. Right. And so that's just, it's the, I've seen that several people have made the analogy to the Eye of Sauron, and that's just what happens. It's like, when the IRS gets, starts looking at you, they're going to find something. And that's kind of what happened here. They just made enough noise that they drew the attention. And then instead of just saying, hey, it's cool, we come in peace, they essentially doubled down and said we're gonna fight you on all this stuff, and then that's what resulted in Wizards filing the first case, as you already noted, and then Wizards and then the new TSR attempting to file this odd case in North Carolina the day after, in completely ignoring any kind of rules with respect to venue. And how the long arm statute works, and there's some good videos online that talk about all that, why they can't file against a Seattle-based company in North Carolina, and why you do that in the first place. Because all you're doing, what they were trying to do, is assert rights to these trademarks. Well, there's already an action in place. That's your venue. That's where you can fight this case. You can go ahead and assert your rights there. There's no advantage to filing first. It's not first in line, get some sort of advantage. Yeah. The standard review and the actual process is going to be the same regardless if you were sued or you did the filing. It doesn't matter.
Well,
So I was very confused by
that. Matt brought up a good point. I was going to bring this up next. Is that I think one of the big differences is that no way, shape, or form did TSR2, Jason Elliott's version, ever say they were the original. And that is something that they have really tried to push. That hey, we're the original TSR, and they're trying to obfuscate things in that regard. But in Texas, we have a saying: if you mess with the bull, you get the horns. And I think this might have been definitely that. Is that they just pulled one too many boners. And you were correct when you said that Jason was working with them, not against him. And somebody brought up the TSR or the top secret. The new top secret is an entirely different game than the old top secret. It has while it has part of the same name, it's not even called top secret. It's called Top Secret
New World
Order. It is an entirely new set of rules. It is not in any way, shape, or form the original Top Secret. So,
and Wizards had let that specific trademark had lapsed. They showed no interest in renewing it. Jason made informal inquiries. Is there any interest in renewing it? Even though he could have just said it's ours. He then was courteous and asked, and they said no, it's fine. He didn't. He had basically a tacit permission, and that's why that worked. Could Wizards have fought that? Absolutely. But they didn't because they didn't have any reason to.
Right. Well, here we got a question from Robin Irwin. Here's a lawyer question. Wizards of the Coast filed an administrative action, not a federal court complaint. Because they filed in the trademark and was it copyright office or however that office is called. What's the difference between filing an administrative action and a federal court complaint?
Well, one is required, I think, and again, you are now stepping way outside of my specialty. Now I'm going to speculate. And so
we speculate all the time. Just join us. Just throw something out.
Come to the dark side.
All the time. Yeah.
So let's see how I can explain this in a way that makes sense. So we are under an English common law system. We basically adopted our entire legal system from England. And that is a threshold or axiomatic principle in that is that you cannot sue the king, right? So the government sets rules for how and how it can be sued and how its processes how you interact with it. For example, so when the government then creates the U.S. federal government creates a trademark patent office, they then set administrative rules of how you can proceed in court, and that's what that is. They're basically requiring an administrative step before you can do anything further. So I believe, and I may be completely wrong, I don't believe you can step into federal district court and sue someone under a trademark theory without going through the step first. But I may be wrong about that. That's my best guess.
It makes a lot of sense because I was a cop in New York City, and one of the things we could get sent to was our trial room, which was an administrative process, and it was a court, but it was a civil court in its proceedings, not a criminal court. So the level of proof was a lot lower. I learned all this stuff when I was in my time.
Like for example, here's just to throw this out there is that if you go and you get a flu shot and it's improperly administered, like it's injected into your shoulder capsule or something like that and does a lot of damage to your shoulder, you can't file a medical malpractice case. There's a specific vaccine court that the feds have set up, and that's your exclusive remedy. You got to go do that. So the government has done that for certain types of cases, and you must do this way. And that's what I suspect is how trademark goes. But again, it's not I'm a personal injury lawyer. Right. I don't do that kind of stuff.
All right. So now this is what I'm going to, Robin's following up on some stuff, but it brings up some things that I was wondering about. So when Wizards of the Coast filed over the trademark, the day before TSR filed it back, Wizards of the Coast filed over the one trademark, and that was the TSR, the Game Wizards, what the Man in the Moon or whatever it is, because TSR had abandoned pretty much all the rest. They gave them all up. They were in process of being abandoned. This one they held on to. I don't know why. When TSR filed in the wrong venue, and my belief they filed in the wrong venue because they needed to file immediately to start raising funds. talking out of my ass, folks. No inside information, but they needed. What sounds better? We have an action against us for fraud, or we are suing the big bad Wizards of the Coast. What's going to gain more money? Suing Wizards of the Coast, as opposed to defending yourself against fraud. So that's why I believe they went the next day. They did a quick filing, and they knew it was going to get thrown out, but they allowed them to get their foot in the door, put their Indiegogo, and say, "Hey, we need money." But when they filed to find out true ownership or what declaratory judgment of every one of these visual marks that they had had applied for prior, even if they abandoned them already. So I'm assuming that if they would win, I'm not saying they could, but if they would win their case, their assumption is that they could get one or more of these marks that they abandoned assigned to them based upon the federal court's ruling. I don't see it happening, but I'm working on the assumption that that's the mindset.
Yeah, I think it's possible. And it's also possible, and now I'm just speculating too, that they filed in North Carolina just because they wanted that's a more attractive venue for them.
Oh God, yes, for the lawyer is.
Yeah, so and they maybe had maybe a reach theory how they can make venue work. I mean, the long arm statute, there's some wiggle room there, but with the rapidity with which it was abandoned, I think they quickly realized that they didn't have much of an argument there. Yeah, and then the accompanying bluster with the money raise with the stuff about the legacy clause, that's probably the most interesting part of all this for me, because the trademark stuff is going to be sorted out in very dry terms, who filed what when, and that will work its administrative process through, and it could be that there's something at the end that this new company call themselves TSR will have some old marks, some old to work with. That's possible. I don't know, but what they won't do, and I'm here to tell you with absolute certainty, as close to absolute certainty as that I feel comfortable giving, is that they're never going to prevail on forcing Wizards of the Coast to with their IP, how they can describe their own IP. So just imagine this for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, that you drive up to McDonald's and you get a cup of coffee and it says, "Ooh, caution, hot coffee," and that really upsets you. Ooh, boy, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sue McDonald's to keep them from saying that. That's essentially what these guys are trying to do. They're not even trying to do it. They're just saying they're going to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But there's no legal theory that's going to ever accomplish that. And so that just has to be abandoned. And any right-thinking person could just dismiss that immediately. That is just not a thing.
It's a red herring. It's an absolute red herring, because this case has nothing to do with the disclaimer fact that WotC, whether you like it, don't like it, hate it, whatever, it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with this case. It's something that Lanasa and buddies threw in there to try to rally the troops and say, look, we're trying to protect the name of TSR, which, by the way, they aren't TSR. They're not the original TSR anyway. So the fact that they're trying to rally the troops to prevent something that was said about legacy product 30 years ago, it's absolutely mind-blowing, because it has nothing to do with what's going on now. It's a red herring, absolute red herring.
Look, I obviously love this stuff too. I mean, I love these products from when I was a kid and through to the present day. I absolutely adore them. But this is still the intellectual property Wizards of the Coast. And if they're going to put any kind of disclaimer, they could say, you know what, this product sucks. You shouldn't buy it. It's terrible. The art sucked. The game design was wonky. You shouldn't buy it. They can do that. It's their freaking intellectual property. It is their product. Just like telling McDonald's how they can brand their hamburgers, you can't tell Wizards of the Coast how to brand what they own. And so that is not only not part of this case, it'll never be part of any case, because there's no lawyer who's going to look at that and say, what? They're never going to file that case. It's never, ever going to happen.
And not only that, because they were trying to claim that it's like, whoa, it's liable against game creators for the time. Well, it's not like Justin actually has any standing, because he's not a game creator from that time. Even if he were to make that argument, which is not an argument that would run, in my opinion, he'd have no standing. And as an aside, since we're on this, I'm just going to make a quick statement for somebody out there in the larger world of gaming who loves to troll me without tagging me. Dyson, yes, I just like the disclaimer. I think it's bullshit. However, the reason why I am against what TSR 3 is doing is because they are stupid and they can't get rid of the disclaimer. It's never going to happen. It's just a way to separate rubes from their money, as Courtney said in the chat. So no, go screw. There you go. I'm sorry, I had to say that. I just had to get that out of the way. It was irking me. I hate.
Was he? Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Didn't he say that you're just attacking Lanasa because you're jealous? Is that the same? Is this who we're talking about?
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
that's the dumbest take of all time. But yeah, that's good.
So
okay.
I just wanted to get that off my chest.
This is okay. Thing. Yeah.
You know,
I won't even say the name because I don't want to give him any more publicity. But yes, I read that.
No.
I thought that was hilarious.
It's candy.
I thought it was hilarious.
Mike, can you two continue on for a minute? I got to catch up on the chat because these people.
Okay, I thought you were going to say you had to go to the bathroom or something. I was like,
no.
You don't have to announce. You don't have to announce how you just sneak out like I do.
Oh yeah, I just turn off the screen.
No. So another thing I wanted to bring up though is that I think it's interesting that we didn't find out at first that WotC actually filed first, and then new TSR came in and said, "Oh, we're gonna sue WotC," which I thought was weird. That didn't seem to make any sense out of nowhere. But once we found out the filing dates, it made sense that WotC kind of fired the first shot. Why would WotC not say? I mean, they didn't say anything. We would have never known this if Eric didn't pull up the actual court documents. But they didn't make a big deal out of this at all. I mean, is there a strategy to that, or they just don't care? Or?
Well, yeah. I mean, I file dozens of lawsuits every year. I don't make a press release with each one, and this is that's just how corporations do business. They're constantly filing lawsuits, and it's of no moment to them. That's just their modus operandi. That's just part of the operation, part of how they prosecute their business. So no, that didn't even occur to them to release a statement or make certainly not anything on social media about, hey, we're gonna enforce our copyright and our IP rights against these people in, I guess, either North Carolina or Lake Geneva. I'm not exactly sure where they're located, but no, they would never do that because they have. If you look up, there's a database called Pacer that has federal court cases, and you can put in Wizards of the Coast. You'll see there's all kinds of litigation out there that they're involved in, and that we've never heard of, and we never would unless we look for it. And that's why we heard about the TSR 3 one, because they say, hey, look at us, we did a thing. And that's the only reason why, at least for a day or two, people thought that they had fired the first shot, when that in fact was not the case.
Which again, you would think that if you were, well, I assumed there was a cease and desist or something similar to it earlier this year around the summertime, when I noticed that all the trademarks applications were getting abandoned, when I saw that there was no statement of use for Star Frontiers, which, by the way, today's the 15th. On the 22nd, when that one goes poof, just like when Evil Hat was applying for it, and they never gave their statement of use, and then it also went poof. So, again, it to be on the offensive makes it seem like you're fighting the big fight, and you're fighting the bad wizards of the coast, the corporation. But to say, hey, well, the corporation just hit us with a charge of fraud in our trademark application, that's not going to probably rally the troops, which I think is why they filed again, and why they filed as quickly as they did. They didn't. It might have been ready to go. We're going to get hit with something. When we do, we got to be ready to submit our own. I don't know. Now,
I think I think you're absolutely right about that. There's no way that they pulled together. I read the complaint that TSR3 filed just once briefly, but it did have enough information in it that it suggested it was clearly not pulled together that day. That had been in the works for a bit. So yes, there had been clearly some warning that stuff was coming, and they were marshaling the troops. I just don't agree with how they deployed them.
All right, so here I'm gonna give a hypothetical, because now let's say in this case the mark that is being disputed, the TSR, the Game Wizard. If uh, say I like the Coca-Cola trademark, the visual or the actual graphic mark, and I decide I'm going to make my own copy of it, change it slightly, and then I'm going to apply for a trademark on that. Would that hold up in court? I mean,
No. So again, when you go through the process of applying for a trademark, there are people that examine these things very carefully. And what they do is they, first of all, there's a registry and they go through and see if there's anything close. What they're trying to do, the 100, got to keep in mind when with the field of trademark, the goal is one, and that is to avoid consumer confusion. If you look at a mark and it's confusing as to something else, that it's not going to get approval. So if it looks a lot like if you're going to sell a carbonated cola beverage and that logo looks a lot like Coke or Pepsi, there's absolutely no way that the trademark office is going to approve it, just because it has the potential for confusion. Now that's at the end of the day, that's what all this massive body of law is based on, that one principle.
okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Wizards of the Coast has been on print on demand. Now, admittedly, there was a period of time when Wizards of the Coast took all their PDFs off of Drive-Thru RPG, took their ball, they went home for a couple of years, and then they came back. Would that time frame where they took their ball and were no longer distributing PDFs with these marks have somehow relinquished their rights to these marks?
And that, quite frankly, again, you're now past what I know. That's a technical question, and I don't know. And I don't know if what to when the question of the mark in use is a very loaded question, and a very there's tens of thousands of published cases on that subject, exploring the limits of it, and that's not where I swim. So I don't know, but I would doubt it. Quite frankly, I would doubt it just from my peripheral experience with trademark stuff. I would doubt that stepping away and not selling a product for a couple of years is enough. But again, I might be wrong on that.
Right.
I'd be very surprised if that's the case.
My common sense would say if somebody stepped in when they weren't selling it, maybe you could have a way to argue that you could snag the mark. But if it's actually currently in use, even if it hadn't been out there for a while, I don't see it. Yeah. Dandelion Games is a question for the three of us, and I can already tell you the answer.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I know an answer to this too. So go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You three are pretty close to some of the original writers. Was there much of an outrage by them when Wizards of the Coast first made the statements about the old school material being bigoted and misogynistic? I'll tell you, for the most part, the people that were allowed it for people like me were the old school gamers who consumed the material. I didn't hear any of the old school creators complain at all.
Nope.
That's just my.
Yeah. No. Look, one of the claims that that new TSR makes is that this has really hurt these guys trying to get jobs and this and that. No, it hasn't. No, nobody is looking at the resume of Alan Hammock and saying, "Oh, it says here that you may have worked on material 40 years ago that might have said, I can't hire you for this job. Sorry." No, that doesn't happen. And that's once again another red herring. It just doesn't. It's just not in anybody's wheelhouse that they're like, "Oh, wait a second, these guys worked on TSR back in the." Look, we're all intelligent human beings here, and obviously, and I brought up the example a couple of weeks ago that when I was a kid, the word gypsy was a word you used. You just use it all the time. Nobody thought about it 40, 50 years ago. Now we know not to use the word. We don't use it, so it's nobody holds anybody responsible for that. Like, did you don't fill out a resume that says, did you use the word gypsy in 1979, which
only
was
when
a
I
common
sang the
use.
song.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. None of these guys are being held responsible for things that happened 40 years ago, unless you're just, the most reactionary person alive and you blame people for things that happened, 50 years ago when they didn't know it was supposed to be bad. No, these people don't have any problems getting jobs. They don't have any problems being hired. That they don't think their works is denigrated. They have a whole network of super loyal fans and people that love to see them at conventions. Yeah, that's just another dumb red herring spread by the Lanasa camp. That we're looking out for these old. We're going to help these old guys out. We're looking out for these old guys.
Jim Ward is not happy about it. He stated so on the RPG Pundit stream. Again, I don't talk to everybody. You're asking who I've spoken to that is from that
But
era.
once again, it hasn't stopped Jim from getting work. Jim has
No,
plenty of work. I mean,
Jim
and you know what? It's absolutely his right to be unhappy about it. And you know, if he's unhappy about it, I understand completely. You know, I would be unhappy too, probably, but it hasn't stopped Jim from getting work. Matter of fact, Jim is as busy as he's ever been.
Well,
He's got tons of stuff going
on. The whether Jim is upset about the legacy disclaimer, whether he is upset about clerics being called priests in the second edition of the rules, whether Jim is upset about how armor class got changed in 3.5 has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You know, it's just because it's owned by someone else. It's the property of Wizards of the Coast. And you know, basically we're just trying to weaponize edition warring at some point. That's really what we're talking about here. And I get, yeah, gosh, if you don't like the legacy disclaimer, don't buy the product. That's how you just don't buy it.
Right.
Just say, you know what, if you don't like 5th edition D&D, don't buy it. You know, it's just the same. It's the same. We get back to the same.
I've been trying to find out if the legacy disclaimer is actually on the product. And from what I've been learning from people who've told me that when they've purchased and downloaded, the disclaimer is on the sale on the blurb page, but it's not on the product. Right. Is what I've heard. So
I don't think I have. I
bought a few things from enjoying the product. It doesn't hurt you from enjoying the product. It shouldn't hurt you from enjoying the product. I don't care, and that's Eric and I bring this point up a lot when we talk about it. Is whatever goes on at our tables goes on our tables. We don't care what people say or think. It doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter if there's a disclaimer statement or not. I happen to think I roll my eyes because I think they go a little too far. I don't think it's necessary. Eric kind of believes the same way I do. But in the end, it doesn't matter. You play the game how you want to play the game. And so, as I often refer to them, as the WotC police are not going to kick your door in and say, you know what, you didn't properly read this disclaimer statement before you ran against the slave lords. So we're going to have to take your books away, and we're going to also step on your miniatures as we walk out the door too. No, not going to happen.
God damn, step on my miniatures, why don't you?
Yeah, I believe what happens. That's just something that pops up when you buy something on drive-through, and then that's it. It's just just like anything else. Yeah, but I don't know. I've rolled right past it.
I've asked that question, and people have come back and told me that, well, yeah, I downloaded something like 2 months ago, didn't have it. So I was like, I'm not gonna. Well, I guess I could go back through, and I got a lot of. I do have a number of purchases I've made through Wizards of the Coast for some classic items. I guess I can go through and re-download them and see if it was added. I doubt it, because you know what? That would require effort for them to add that. It would actually require them to re-edit the PDFs. I sincerely doubt they went and did that. Just me.
Well, considering the crappy scans they have up for some of those PDFs, yeah, I think that's beyond their capabilities. Ouch. Yes. True, though. True. It's true. Come on. Some of those scans are terrible.
Robin has another lawyer question. This is a hypothetical. Legal theory: Wizards of the Coast doesn't own the copyright to disputed images because the disputed images were not lawfully assigned to the original TSR back in the 70s. I guess that would come from discovery, coming from a civilian. But does that get proved or disproved? I mean, does TSR have to show that they don't? Wizards of the Coast didn't have possession, or does Wizards of the Coast have to show evidence that they do? I don't know.
So the question is, were the disputed images not lawfully assigned? I would be interested to hear under what theory they weren't lawfully assigned, when I'm sure that there is an omnibus agreement clause in the purchase from WotC saying we're buying everything. This is acquiring all assets. This is, I'm sure there's several things. I haven't looked at the actual purchase agreement, the actual contract that purchased TSR, but it's hard for me to believe that they would have somehow fumbled that. But for the sake of assumption, for the sake of argument, if they did, if of course there was no transfer, then sure, then that's a.
I think one of the points that Hogue. I'm sorry, I was just saying. I think one of the points that Hogue Law brought up was that he was interested in knowing if Greg Bell was if Greg Bell did work for hire or if he was a part of TSR, because he said that might have some impact on the case. But I think there's a 99.99999% chance there's no way he was part of TSR. He was. I'm almost positive he's worked for hire all the artwork he did. I guess they found that out somehow. I don't know where and discovered. Call John Peterson. He probably knows more than anybody. But I don't even know sure exactly what that would mean, because I'm like Alex. I'm definitely not a lawyer. I don't know what that would mean if Greg Bell was an employee versus work for hire, but that was one point he did bring up, that he would be interested in knowing, how that came about. If that, I don't know what impact that would have on the case, but.
Yeah, I mean that's now you're dipping into agency law about what that means when you're employee or work for hire or an independent contractor and so on. But I think what the conclusion would be that when he was compensated for drawing an image for the company TSR, that company that image became the property of TSR, and when TSR sold, that all went to Wizards of the Coast. It would be very difficult for me to believe anything other than that. Exactly that, just that simple. That happened. There'd have to be some really unusual circumstances, basically that somehow either that the artist wasn't paid or something happened strange that for some reason the original TSR, that's the key. The original TSR couldn't have had the copyright, because if the original TSR had the copyright, then this discussion's over, and I can't imagine they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and obviously, I'll preface this. Obviously, I am not a lawyer. Don't even play one on YouTube. But Discovery, if we ever get to that point, will bring a lot of this to the top. And I'm assuming that is the Hail Mary into triple coverage, 65 yards, into the end zone with the receiver being 5'7" is what's going on right now. This is the Hail Mary play by TSR. Could the ball land where they needed to land? It can certainly happen. We've listen. The Jets could have a winning season in my lifetime. I'm not saying
let's not get crazy here. Come on.
I'm not saying
this isn't science fiction. We're not talking science fiction or fantasy. This is reality. So come on.
Theoretically, anything is possible. It's just highly, highly unlikely. With what we have in front of us.
Okay, so if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to answer it, Alex, because I don't want to ruin your rep. But absolutely, this is just your speculation. What do you think is going to happen here? What do you think happens? Seeing what you've seen already, and knowing the principles involved in this case, what would be your guess about what happens from here on out?
Yeah, I get. I remember being in law school and I was asked that question about the OJ case, and I will give the same answer to what I gave then, and that is I haven't seen the evidence. Right. I'm not there. I haven't examined the documents. I haven't seen what was filed by whom so I'm in no better position than anyone else to speculate on the outcome here. As hopefully this case actually goes forward just purely for entertainment value, and that we actually get some discovery. The federal rules, are pretty clear on how that's going to go. The first thing that's going to happen will be exchange some written discovery called interrogatories. My hope is that those, I would imagine, most civil cases are a matter of public record. So those responses should be eventually viewed by all of us, and we'll go from there. And that's until that happens. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't even read. I haven't had new TSR's theory really explained to me why they think they can do what they're doing, other than abandonment, just like in that other than that broad category. So no, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not.
That's why I phrased it the way I did, because I had to put you on the spot. I mean, you didn't have to take the bait. I had to throw the bait out there. You got
to take the bait. That's the reason why bait is there. Come on, it's a temptation.
He's too smart for us. He's gonna dodge those questions. He's smart.
Well, I'm just gonna be wrong. That's all. I just can't guess on stuff I don't know. I'm not gonna.
Right, and for all we know, there might be some information that TSR has in their back pocket that's gonna blow this whole case and show that they own everything.
The real murder is.
What the outcome here that would make the most sense is that they being TSR3 have out of this, they come out with something that they can call themselves, if it's TSR or whatever it is, and then actually start doing what they're promising to do, and that's produce some content. That's just do that. Go make games. Instead of this sort of, I don't understand this brush fire culture war stuff. I mean, it doesn't accomplish anything, and it certainly is not moving the hobby forward. It's not good for the hobby. and it's certainly not helping gamers. I mean, just go if you don't like what Wizards of the Coast is doing, do what people who don't like Wizards of the Coast do. Go make your own games. Go sell your own games. And lots of people are doing that.
Eric talk about that all the time. But last show we talked about that, and my theory was, or my idea would have been, look, all Lanasa had to do was to get Ernie and Jeff Leeson to slap their name on a dungeon, print up 500 copies, limited editions for $25, and they'd be sitting on several $1,000s right now.
Mike, they're doing that. The Dungeon Crawl board game, which Noah Steinberg just brought
That's
up.
Not written by them. That's a Wizard Tower Games. Look, everybody right here.
Ernie's name is on it in big print, where it says "with Ernie Gygax" in big print. But he's not the one that wrote the game.
Eric, you have done this. Alex has done it. I've done it with Tom Wilson. We've all published stuff. There's nothing special about us. We're just fans that love D&D. We've all published things. Why can't he do it? What is it? There's nothing it's not that hard anymore. It's not like you're trying to have a band back in 1979. You had to go to the studio. No, you can mix it on your own computer now. Well, this is the same thing. Tom Wilson and I wrote an adventure. He laid it out. We got stock art. We brought it to the printer. The printer printed it up. I paid $5 a copy to get 500 copies. I don't know. And it was just done. There it is, and I got somebody to draw. We got Matthew Ray do the cover. Boom, done. It really is that easy nowadays. If you have an idea and you got some money and some art, you can do this. It's beyond my imagination why they haven't done this. This is
when your mindset, when you pick up, when you initially claimed that you own these 5 graphic marks, was that you were going to license them out to other publishers. Please reach out to us for licensing agreements. Which, by the way, I got to thank Wizards of the Coast law firm for going to the Tavern to pick up the screenshot where I saved that Facebook post and use that in the C&D letter. When you're using these, not because you plan on using them in your own products, but you see them as a way to make money by getting others to produce products and licensing it from you. The mindset was never for TSR, in my opinion, to be a publisher. I don't believe that was ever the mindset. I believe it was just to claim marks and claim trademarks.
Here's my problem with that, Eric. I mean,
I got a lot of problems with it.
It's just as easy to do the other thing too. It's just, as a matter of fact, it's not only easier. It might be as easy or easier. It will actually make you more money in the long run. Justin Lanos is not going to get $25,000 in donations. I'm sorry, it's just not. But you know what? He could have made $25,000 his first year publishing limited edition OSR style modules easily. I mean, that's not even a question. Yeah. Plus if you marketed it right and you got some old school guys to do the cover, got a Jeff Easley cover, and like I said, put Ernie's name on it somewhere, boom, it could have been done. And it's just mind-boggling to me they chose this long way around.
I understand the fantasy of, we're going to bring back TSR. We're gonna go back to 1978. This is the company it's going to be, and we're gonna wind back the clock, and we're going to keep doing what we were doing in 1980 and 81 and so on. But that's not possible. It's not possible. And so. If they can get some mark, they can identify themselves some way and I think they've made enough noise that people know who they are now. Which it's the there's no such thing as bad press kind of theory, and they start actually producing some products that OSR gamers want. Then great, then go do it. They sell 1 million copies. Go make all the money in the world. And have at it. I think that'd be great. That'd actually be a positive for the industry.
Yeah, make your money off the merits, not trying to
claim jump. It's claim jumping, basically.
Yes, you're right. By the way, Ty Beard is a great comment. Regardless of the legal merits, picking a knife fight with a company as big as Wizard of the Coast, it seems like a dubious business decision. That is literally the kobold with the spear fighting my 9th level fighter.
Isn't that kind of what I mean? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, Alex. You are. Isn't that kind of what a lawyer tries to talk you out of? If he's like, "Oh, maybe this isn't the one we want. This isn't the hill we're going to die on here." You don't have a good case. I mean, shouldn't every once in a while a lawyer tell a client, "We don't have a good case here. We can't go forward."
Sure. Yeah, they should, but there are, just like any other profession, there are bad lawyers, and there are ones that are let's say less than have the purest motives. So if you come in and you plunk down $5,000 and say, "Hey, I want to do this," and say, "Well, we'll do that until that $5,000 is gone, and then you're goodbye." So that absolutely can happen, and I don't know. I have no idea how well capitalized this venture is, and if they really are prepared to go do a pitched corporate legal battle, I doubt it. But more power to them if they are. And I just don't think that. I think they're in such a poor position on the law, and so that's why I hope they're getting some counsel somewhere, saying, gosh, I know you got these aspirations, but you've got a 5% chance on this one, a 2% chance on this claim, and do you really want to spend $150,000, taking a tilt at that windmill to see if you can come, that's up to you.
I've told Eric's this story before, but we were, my dad died of a negligent, doctor being negligent, and we talked to a lawyer. He talked us out of the case. He said, "Look, I'd like to take your case, but I honestly don't think you're going to win it. And I just don't think it's a good case." He said, I think, what the guy did to your father was bad, and this and that, but he goes, "You can shop it around, but I'm going to tell you right now, my opinion is that I don't want you to waste your money," which was great advice, because it was, we did shop it around, and the other lawyers pretty much said the same thing. I actually gained a little respect back for lawyers after that, because they weren't like, "Oh yeah, we're going to sue this doctor for $1 billion and you're going to be driving around in a Lamborghini." And they were like, "No, we'll do it, but this is a tough case and it's probably not going to go anywhere." And I respected that. You'd rather be told the truth than to blow smoke up your ass and, "Oh yeah, we're going to own WotC after this is over, baby." We're what? Yeah. That might be what you want to hear, but that isn't what you need to hear.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not like it's gonna. I'm a contingency fee lawyer, and that's who you spoke to doing medical malpractice cases. And so I spend a lot of time every day telling people why they don't have a viable case and why I can't move their case forward. And undoubtedly, that the TSR 3 new TSR, they're going to be in some sort of hourly rate. They're going to be paying their counsel, and decent IP lawyers certainly in the $275 to $350 per hour range. That's going to stack up a lot of cheese fast if they're really going to fight this. Because I saw a question about what the legal costs would be. You can spend $50,000 in an eye blink in a case like this, because every time anything happens, the lawyer and the people that work with them, paralegals and associates, are going to be doing things, and they're going to be billing. It'll get very expensive very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to make sure that you have that first of all, that the fight is worth winning, that you have the funds to do it, and that you're really committed to doing it. And those three things have to line up, or else you're just pissing the wind. You're just wasting money.
They've raised almost $4,000 on their Indiegogo, so that's about 15 hours of work. So
that's not even a retainer. They're not to retainer level yet. But
but all the extra money though, all the extra money is going to go to that memorial they're building. No, it's not a memorial anymore. It's something else.
If they were well funded, right? If they had the cash to spend, it wouldn't be this Indiegogo. Okay, that's my personal opinion. The Indiegogo is because we know we can't do a long-term. We have the money to file, maybe out of our pockets, but are you? I don't think $50,000 will pay for the two legal battles they have, right? I'm gonna again. I'm a civilian, non-lawyer. I'm going to assume that they believe that if they can win in federal civil court with their action, that would then make Wizards of the Coast action irrelevant, and that would die. So they only have to fight the one that they filed for, and they were hoping to file for it in a friendly jurisdiction where they didn't have to, travel to. They could roll out of bed and, go to court. But,
well, I was just for a couple of years on a sort of ride-along position with a friend who owns a major company who had major litigation with Wizards of the Coast. And ultimately did not prevail and had a good case. And the cost
Jeez.
Was a lot more than 50,000. Let's put it that way. I mean, that was
And they actually had a good case, you say, too, and they still didn't.
They had a viable claim.
Wow. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, that's you got to take into account.
Yeah, I mean that's part. I hate to say it, that's part of the American legal system in a lot of ways. If you have, and I think Ty just pretty much said something like to the effect, you can smother somebody in money from the other side. We can put the law firm that they've decided to joust against has 1,200 employees. I believe Justin's law firm has a half dozen. Or something like that.
You can. I have beaten some of the biggest firms in the country on cases that I was right on. You got to start with that. You got to start have the right of the law first of all, and there's no amount of lawyers on the other side or assistants and paralegals and stuff is going to improve fundamentally anyone's position. But what it does do is that when they have to, especially in a corporate case, when you're talking about creating paper discovery, they have limitless ability to paper the opposition and stuff and make requests and do depositions. And they can just bleed, especially a small defendant, dry in discovery because and that's a fact. Especially in a case like this, because there's so much stuff going on. I mean, they could spend weeks in deposition. They could depose everyone involved. And each person take a week to depose them and stuff. I mean, you'd have hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal expenses very quickly.
Yeah.
And Matt Melman makes a point, and this is something that I actually missed, but I believe Justin was named personally in the document that Eric showed, not as a corporation. Being named personally is not good. All right, so here I'm going to pull the curtain back a little bit. My understanding from what I have heard, and I haven't heard it on fairly good information confirmed with multiple sources, is that at least as of the summer, Ernie and Duck were operating on verbal contracts only. The only person listed for the corporation was Justin. If that's the case, if it is a sole proprietorship corporation, if I'm getting that right, would that put Justin on the hook if this stuff goes south?
Well, no, he's actually the only one protected then, because that's the corporate veil.
Oh, really?
That's why, that's why you have a corporation. Is that I'm not doing this as Justin Lanaza. Is that his last name? Lanaza, whatever his name is. Lanaza. I am Fun Times Incorporated or whatever they call themselves. That's why you have the corporate veil, as it's called. You have protections. So if they have people who are acting on behalf of this company but aren't actual corporate representatives and they're acting on their own, they're the ones that are actually exposed.
All right.
There's a concept of piercing the corporate veil, which basically says this corporate fiction is fraudulent. That Justin is this company, and there's no effort to keep them separate. That's very difficult to do. So if they're paying their corporate dues and they have a separate corporate checking account and a few things like that, he'll be protected. And so Wizards could take judgment against basically a shell corporation, and Justin could walk away. Which I assume you'd be savvy enough to do. Anyone who does a significant amount of business would be incorporated. That'd be foolish not to.
So, all right. So it's something that I saw recently online, and I have not confirmed it. I haven't dug into it much, but somebody mentioned that the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum, their website states that the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum is an entity of TSR LLC. However, apparently in the last week or so, the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum has been incorporated as its own LLC. Something not in the legal field, to me that seems like that's an effort to separate the Dungeon Hobby Shop from an LLC that might be in trouble. Would that likely be the case?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess it's easy enough to do a search on the Wisconsin Division of Corporations. It's DFI.corporation. It's really easy to check and do a check for TSR Incorporated to see if that's really even a company, if that's even been filed. I have no idea. I've never looked. But it's certainly, that's the reason why companies create a bunch of different LLCs for their various holdings, because they're basically they're siloed. Then they're protected. Right. So that's savvy. I mean, to do that, let's just assume that TSR LLC is is a viable corporation. But could that all go away? Could that company, could TSR Inc. or LLC vanish here shortly, and they don't want the hobby shop to go with it? Yeah, I mean that's
Okay.
that could be. But that's not going to protect them if the acts or omissions were committed while the hobby shop was under that corporate umbrella. It's not going to. That's not going to. It's there's a.
You can't
from now going forward, that's going to be protected. But for acts and omissions that happened before that change occurred, now this is like hypothetical on hypothetical. I don't even know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Right.
But it's not 100% protection, is what I'm saying.
Okay. So now, kind of building off that, were TSR to lose its legal action in either court, could they be held liable for the court costs of Wizards of the Coast?
Mostly in our legal system, the American legal system is that each side bears their own legal costs. That's in the vast majority of cases. We don't have a lot of loser pays, except for what times we do. And there are specific ones that there are specific instances, all kinds of cases that have that's built in right into the law. And I believe that in the trademark court that there is a provision for that. I
read that. That's my question, because I saw that there, but I don't know if it applies in TSR's filing against Wizards. But I know I saw that in the trademark court.
Generally speaking, we have in federal court there's a thing called Rule 11. Rule 11 sanctions that can be interposed. So if a court finds that it was a specious or fraudulent case, then they can sanction the filing party for actual costs, actual attorney's fees, and punishment if they're so inclined. So yeah, that's possible. I mean, federal court is not a place to fool around in. You can get away with a lot more in state court. In my experience, but federal court, you got to mind your P's and Q's, and if you file a case that shouldn't be filed there, that's just not a good practice. It's dangerous to do that.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. See the layers of shit that, and it's just that there is so much potential. Listen. As somebody who has been sued in my capacity as a police officer, I've gone through the legal process. It's not pleasant. I would never willingly put myself into the process, especially when from my perspective, okay, the benefits on the end of TSR are minimal compared to the potential liabilities should you lose.
Sure.
I'm guessing motivation here is I'm not going to get to the motivation. I don't understand it, but
we've tried to
the
figure
liability is potentially huge, and that therefore becomes a real head scratcher. I understand the idea of tilting windmills. I understand the idea of giving the good old to the man and to the corporation. And I know a lot of people don't like Wizards of the Coast. I personally don't buy anything that they produce now. However, I really appreciate the fact that they even put 5e under the OGL. That was awesome. Even if I don't run it, I think it was a gift to the gaming community they didn't have to do. And I think people forget that. So I don't have ill will against Wizards of the Coast. But again, fighting Wizards of the Coast is not a motivation for me. But I guess it is for some people, at least for fundraising.
It's such an unnecessary. My thing is what we talked about before. It's just such an unnecessary battle because nothing Wizards of the Coast. Look, I don't buy any Wizards of the Coast products at all. I just don't. I don't buy anything because I don't play 5th edition, so it's not important to me. And I have, 40 years of back material that I still need to crawl through, as well as all the new OSR stuff. But nothing that they do has any effect on the game I play at my house. And that's what it just boggles my mind when people get so upset over something that Wizards of the Coast does. And you always have to ask them, does it affect your personal game? Well, no, it doesn't, but they still shouldn't be doing it. But it doesn't affect your game. And then that's what drives me crazy. If there was only some way they could affect your game, well, they can't. That's the great thing about role-playing games.
Right.
They take place at your house using whatever rules you want, because everybody has their own, house rules, and involving the people you want to be there. I mean, nobody. If you're playing D&D and you're using a rule set that you don't want to use and playing with people that you don't like, you're doing it all wrong. You're doing it completely wrong. So I don't get. Yeah, you can hate companies for what they do. I mean, I'm old enough where I remember the old TSR days when the S was the money sign, and people were just, when Lorraine Williams was running that thing into the ground, people were just pissed off because they had lawyers suing people online for crazy stuff. But it still didn't affect my game either. It didn't affect anything I did at home. And so, yeah,
I understand the passion though. I mean, I love this stuff. As you can see, I have, I guess, somewhat ironically, 1st edition and 5th edition next to each other here. And I work with Wizards of the Coast. I have friends at Wizards of the Coast. But I also love my 1E stuff. But I understand people who think that they're tarnishing the legacy of D&D, that they're doing a bad job, they're running in the ground, and they're pissed off and they want to see it change. But you can't, and it's just a matter of if you like it's like you like the former recipe for Coca-Cola, and you don't like what they've done with it since. Well, I guess that's the way it goes. Yeah, it's just. That's a level of vitriol, and it's actually like true believer kind of stuff. That is, I think that's what the three of us have equal confusion about. Like, what do you know?
A lot of this session, for those, I mean, I'm not even going to get into this. This would be a whole 8 hours of talking about Comicsgate, but a lot of this is related to the Comicsgate issues when people didn't like what Marvel and DC were doing. So a lot of the creators broke off and did their own thing, which is fine. They had their own Indiegogos, Kickstarters. They did their own stuff. But then it wasn't just about, well, we're going to create our own material. This is awesome. It said, well, we hate the material that Marvel or DC is putting out. And full disclosure, I'm a huge comic collector. I have over 50,000 comics. I don't collect Marvel or DC anymore because I don't like what they're doing. I don't like their comics anymore. I mean, it's just me. I'm an older guy. They don't appeal to me anymore. But that doesn't mean that I get online and bitch about it all the time. I read my old comics. Right now, I'm completing some runs of some old monster comics of the 70s. I mean, I do my own thing. It doesn't affect the comics that I have, my Kirby and Lee Fantastic Four. Nothing they can do now is going to affect what I have on my shelf. And so that kind of always just kind of surprises me too, because I understand you don't like what they're doing with Marvel and DC, but and if you want to create your own stuff, create your own material. And that's great. A lot of creators have done it. Some creators have made a lot of money doing that. But just a continual harping on and on and on and on about, well, this isn't the comic I grew up with. No, it's not. These are not the comics you grew up with. And every generation has this issue, right? I mean, there's people that read Pulp Fiction back in the 40s and 50s. Well, guess what? When stuff comes out, it's not the same. They did, you can only bitch about it so long. Pulp fiction genre is pretty much gone. It's a lost genre. And there's a lot of things like that. A lot of things are popular for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they run out. Then they're out of popularity. And so you can grouse about it. Oh, that sucks that this isn't around anymore. But the maniacal fascination some people have with going on and on and on. And when I think about that, Eric, I think of a certain stalker you've had online lately who just on and on and on. Like, okay, we get the point. You don't like Eric, because he's
nobody's required to like me, Mike. Come on. I'm used to that. I did 20 years as a cop and did my last dozen or so in internal affairs. So I was disliked by the public, and I was disliked by a number of the force. That's fine. I get it. I understand it. Because and part of what Mike's referring to too is that I got doxxed on Monday by somebody who decided to reveal my real last name, Stina. Not a secret, folks. Stiene. It's in Swords and Wizardry Light and Swords and Wizardry Continual Light. It's not hidden. And the street that I live on. And you know what? As I said before, I'll say it again. I'm a retired cop. I have a license to carry concealed. Thank you very much.
There goes that plan. No, yeah, it's just and well, I mean, somebody else at that has to come along whenever you post. You finally had to block them because it just got ridiculous. And I don't understand that. I don't get it. If somebody doesn't want you, if you don't want me at your party, I don't want to be at your party. I'll go somewhere else. And and once again, the example of Marvel and DC Comics, I just don't, when I pick up something nowadays, I just don't like it that much. Now I like certain runs, like somebody will say, "Oh, you need to pick up this run of this. This is really good." And I think
the new Moon Knight's pretty good, by the way.
You posted. You said the new Moon Knight. I love Moon Knight. I have pretty much every Moon Knight comic. I've got his first appearance. So I'll probably pick up the new Moon Knight because I like Moon Knight. But a lot of the other stuff out there I don't like. But I don't bitch about it. I don't spend all day bitching about it because it's not going to do any good. Marvel and DC don't care what I like or don't like. They really don't. They don't care. And the same thing with WotC. WotC's going to do what WotC does. And what they're doing right now is making a shitload of money. Truckloads of money. So they're going to do what they're going to do, and bitching about it just takes away from your enjoyment of the game you could be playing on your own terms. I play my group. We're going through Highfell, Greg Gillespie's Dungeon Highfell right now. We're using second edition AD&D rules. We're playing our own. We're playing our own game. We're not using fifth edition. We're doing our own thing, and we're having a great time. And I don't sit there and gripe that, man, I would use fifth edition, but fifth edition sucks. No, just use whatever edition makes you happy. I guess I just don't get. Maybe the older you get, maybe it's because you get older. When you get older, you don't see the advantage of wasting time like this. Time is finite when you get older.
Yes.
There's no point in wasting time bitching about shit that you're not going to be able to change.
Well, it's just a function of the greater strife that we have in society, and it's going to leak into our little hobby, this little niche of the world where we got to fight about, it's unfortunate. There's just no need for it, but it's just that's fact of the world.
I give a lot of credit to Frank Messner. I mean, Frank and I have come head to head over a lot of stuff, but Frank was the one that told me as I was sitting at the airport waiting to fly home from my first GaryCon. He was texting me. He's like, "You've got to turn Tenkar's Tavern, the Facebook group, into a neutral ground because gamers need a place where politics isn't part of the narrative." And it was right, because I don't care what your politics are. I don't care whether you like chocolate or vanilla. I don't care whether you're somebody that loves ice cream or would rather have sherbet. I don't care. I just want to game. I want to talk old school gaming. And that, to me, is where it's at. And that's the connections that I have with people. If I want to talk politics, I'll go down to my neighborhood pub. And, I got a bunch of old retirees that I can talk with. And we can bitch and complain about how the world isn't what it was back in the 60s when I wasn't even born. But in any case, I digress.
Well, Alex, we've kept you well over an hour.
Yes.
We haven't done. Eric and I were supposed to do a timeline that we haven't even done yet. You're welcome to stay around if you want to. You can take off. You've done your time with us. We appreciate you having you on. Thanks for popping on for 30 minutes when it was actually an hour and 30 minutes. But
it was good, Alex. Honestly, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for popping on.
We're not telling you to leave. We're just giving.
No, you don't have to leave at all. We just need to do our timeline because we promised everybody a timeline that we haven't given them a timeline yet. So.
Sure. Well, I guess it depends on what you're going to discuss. If it's something that I have, can be meaningful, then I will. But if it's not, then there's no reason.
Why don't you stick around? Then if you don't mind sticking around, we just don't want to. Look, we know you've got better things to do than hang out with these two idiots. But yeah, if you want to stick around, you are absolutely welcome to stick around. But we were talking about, so Eric and I, End World, Morris did a timeline of the new TSR on his latest post. It was actually pretty well researched. He did a pretty good job, but he missed a few things, and he missed a few things. And so we were going to go over this again, and we're going to fill in the missing blanks that Morris missed. Morris is a busy guy. He's got all kinds of shit going on. He's got more, got this. So it's not surprising he missed a few things. So we're going to go over this and toss in a couple of timeline things that he didn't get. So Eric, why don't you take this away? This is going to be your moment to shine, Eric. I'm going to. Alex and I will just pop in and comment.
I don't shine, man. Trust me.
You have done all the research on this. You found out a lot of this stuff.
Listen, no, don't even go that far, please. And I will say, it used to pain me to say that N-World has good stuff. They've certainly improved over the last year and a half, 2 years. And Morris has would this be passable? Would I give it, if it was a term paper, I'd give it like a B. But it's not an A plus because there's a
I
lot
might
of
give
holes.
it a B plus. I'd edge it. It's not A. It's not A
All right.
material by any
All right,
means
all
whatsoever.
right, all right.
I might say it's B plus because he did lay it out pretty well. If you don't know anything that's going on, this is a
But
pretty good playbook.
there's some
to go by.
significant holes in the recent stuff. But I want
There's
to
some big holes.
I want to cover some stuff. So he goes, and I'm not going to go right to the beginning, but he says November 2012, Jason Elliott registers the TSR name of the trademark to launch Gygax magazine. Luke and Ernie Gygax are involved. November 2015, Gail sues TSR. Actually, she sued prior to that, and she was nice enough to tell me directly after threatening me with legal action that it wasn't about something else, by the way, that I didn't even say. But in any case, she was nice enough to tell me that it wasn't a lawsuit. She didn't sue. It was a legal action. It was a trademark dispute. She went through this whole explanation. But the reality is, he says Luke and Ernie Gygax are forced to leave. Yes and no.
I can comment on that too. I was there.
Okay, so go ahead, comment.
Yeah, that's what you're exactly right. Gail filed a trademark contest, and Jason Elliott didn't at the time want to spend the resources necessary to fight it, and I think he had a winning fight. I think they could have prevailed with Gygax magazine.
Well, now, I got a question for you then, because my understanding, and again, layman, you cannot trademark a proper name. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, generally yes, you cannot. It's not a hard and fast rule, but you can trademark a proper name and something. Especially if it's unusual. That's why there are lots of names that are recognized products that you wouldn't recognize as names anymore. But yeah, so it's not a per se rule. But I think I was actually representing Ernie and Luke at the time for that in that during those discussions. And Jason basically decided to fold the tent. He didn't want to spend the money on fighting it, and that's how that went away.
Okay, so part of Gail's stipulation for it, because it was actually resolved, there was an agreement. The agreement required, from my understanding, I've gotten this from individuals involved, that didn't sign any agreement, that if you wanted to remain with the magazine and with the TSR company, you had to sign a non-disparaging agreement to some extent, where you would not say anything bad about Gail in print, online, on video, in your sleep, pretty much at any time where you might draw a breath. You could not say anything bad about Gail.
True.
Folks that know me that would have killed me, because and Ernie, Luke, Tim, and a few others basically told her to pound sand, to be polite about it. Okay, so not that Morris is wrong with this, but it was a very incomplete. So that's the rest of the details on that one. Flash forward, October 20th, we mentioned this earlier. Dungeon Hobby Shop claims ownership of various TSR logos and tries to license them to OSR publishers. By the way, I found that highly amusing that anybody would want to actually license logos. By the way, when he was trying to license them, he did not actually have the federal trademark. He had applied for it. It hadn't gone through the process yet. It wasn't awarded. So I did find that highly amusing at the time. Then we go through this whole thing about the TSR stuff with Ernie's statements and the Wonderfield and Giant Land. And go to N-World if you want to read about that stuff. It's not really relevant to what we're dealing with now. But Jason... again, Jason Elliott forgot his legal counsel. Somebody dropped the ball. They forgot to renew it. That's why all these applications went through. But What's missing from this timeline is, I believe the date is August 18th, is when new TSR finally registered the 3 letters TSR, because when you're so busy grabbing graphical representations of the trademark, who actually needs to grab the trademark that you claim your company represents? Which I find to be highly amusing and a real insight into the company that you're dealing with.
Can I jump in real quick, Eric?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you're going to talk about this. There's something else that Morris left out, and it's actually pretty important because I've seen a lot of people make mistakes along here. Deinhardt's Wonderfield, which has Jim Ward, they teamed up. That he did say they teamed up with TSR, and they were all under the same roof for a very short period of time, about a month or so.
Yep.
But they actually had a falling out, and Morris doesn't put that on here.
He doesn't.
But they had a falling out, and that they're no longer associated with each other. And a lot of people don't understand that, because I see some people still saying, well, Jim Ward works for TSR, or Stephen Deinhardt works for TSR, or that they're going to, yes, they are going to publish something. Why are you saying they're not publishing anything? They're going to publish Giantlands. No, we're talking about 2 totally different companies at this point. We're talking about Wonderfield, which is Stephen Deinhardt and Jim Ward. And we're talking new TSR, which is Lanasa and Ernie, and never the twain shall meet. So I've seen a lot of people get that mixed up online, but they went their own separate ways, which was sort of amusing because for a while on the TSR page they were pushing Deinhardt's Giantlands.
Yes, they were,
and there was a lot of people that went out and bought Giantlands based on the fact that Lanasa and TSR were pushing it. And what was it, $80 a pop or $50? I can't remember how much it was.
Well, the price depended on what website you were grabbing it from.
When they separated, there was a lot of anger in that community, because some of the fans felt like they'd been had, because they had only bought Giantlands to help support TSR, and once Deinhardt took back Giantlands and they separated, then they were supporting a game they didn't care about, because all they cared about was supporting TSR. And when they asked for their money back, Deinhardt told them, no, you're not getting your money back. Thanks for the cash, brothers.
When you look at the Indiegogo, that tells you Lanasa believed that he had the backing of a community that was willing to buy a product that had nothing to do with old school gaming, based upon the TSR association. So he should definitely be able to get backing for his legal actions. I can see the way the mind works. It's certainly logical, thinking.
Right.
So now,
but he doesn't Morris does not make that clear. But yes, Deinhardt and Ward are not part of new TSR.
Here's something even something else to think about. June is when the cease and desist letter came from Woods of the Coast.
Right. He doesn't talk about that either. Yeah.
Right. Well, right. And now think about it. This is probably why Wonderfield went, holy shit, maybe it's time for me to bow out. Mm-hmm. Probably, again, somebody, I don't know, probably working on a verbal contract, not actually having a position in the company in any written contract form. So the ability to say bye-bye was as simple as bye-bye. Okay.
Right.
Now, also in the summertime, I guess in July and August, they started abandoning a lot of their trademarks. And when I mentioned that at the time, when I saw the stuff popping up, I was certain people were like, "Oh, that doesn't mean anything." All right, so that was abandoning because of the cease and desist letter. But again, they held on to the one. I guess maybe Justin felt more attached to it. So they melted down in June. The idea is that the meltdown was Steve Deinhardt, that Lanasa is not the one that was in charge of the social media accounts. But in any case, Deinhardt left, and Michael Havermail, Michael H. came in to handle their social media. Better choice? Certainly. Does that say a lot? Certainly. So, also during this whole escapade, Gary Kahn said they wanted nothing to do with TSR3.
Yeah, he doesn't even cover the TSR con stuff, which is great.
No, but no, he doesn't. He covers the Gen Con. Gen Con
Right.
said they can't have a booth and it won't be running games. But there were no booths to give anybody. Okay, Gary Kahn too. There's no booths to give anybody at this point. So you can say we weren't going to give them a booth because their booth would have been out in the parking lot. All those booths, I'm sure, were sold. But in any case, you're right. They don't mention the TSR Con.
Yeah, TSR Con was originally scheduled for July 4th weekend, and next year, and then it was pointed out several times that you're not going to be able to have a July 4th convention in downtown Lake Geneva on. I mean, you just can't. There's the city's full, and there's nowhere to park, and there's nowhere to there's nowhere to even have a convention at that point. And after that, then so I don't remember exactly when they announced that TSR Con will now take place the same weekend as Gary Con.
Right, because timing is everything.
Because reasons.
Well, if you can't,
I guess it makes some kind of sense. It makes a little sense, I guess. If you're already in town for Gary Con, you can walk over to the house.
You can't walk over to anybody's. You can't walk over to it. No. Come on, it's Lake Geneva. You can't walk anywhere.
You can drive down.
Yeah. End of June, TSR3 blames the widespread pushback it is getting on Wizards of the Coast. This part, at the time, I found very interesting, but now we understand why, because they got the cease and desist letter. Nobody knew about the letter. Okay, they didn't share about the letter. We didn't see the cancellations for another month and a half. So the Wizards of the Coast was not doing any kind of anti-TSR kind of campaign against them. The community was doing that pretty much on their own. I don't think you needed to. But Deinhardt was saying there's a coordinated assault against various channels being mounted upon me, my company, our products, and our staff by Wizards D&D. I need your help to stop it before somebody gets hurt. We created this business. We are TSR. Please support us. Again, they claim that they are the original TSR. And as was pointed out, I believe by Alex earlier, that claim is probably the worst claim that you can make against a multi-billion-dollar parent company that you are the rightful heir. That doesn't work too well. It's not
and as to the extent that there's some sort of coordinated campaign, Wizards is a well-run company. The full extent was a cease and desist letter, and that's it. Yeah. They're not gonna engage on social media. They're not gonna do any of that stuff. And they haven't. They have very strict policies in place to keep that from happening. So that was just again trying to whip. Sounds like an effort to whip up a little anti-Wizards hysteria. Whatever that's worth.
Yep. Well, Eric made a good point that the fact that the Giantland sales went through the roof after Deinhardt hooked up with TSR. That's actually a good point, Eric, because I think that's when the little light bulb went off over Lanas's head, and he said, "Whoa, there's a lot of people that are," because people just absolutely admitted that they didn't know what the game was about. They weren't going to play the game. They didn't care about the game. They were just going to buy 5 copies of it because they wanted to support TSR and support gaming. And I think that caused the light bulb to go off his head. Like, okay, so here's people admitting they're just going to give money for something they don't even care about because they want to support this. And I think that's why we're at where we're at now. Is he's realized there's these people are out here that don't care what we're doing. They just want to support us because they're anti-woke or they're anti-WotC or whatever anti they are. They're going to support us just because we're seen as presenting this one side that they agree with.
Shadzar, where did they say they are the original? Okay, I don't know if you remember this comment, but they claim that they founded Gen Con, and how dare Gen Con tell them that they can't attend Gen Con when TSR founded Gen Con. That was their convention. They founded it. How could they be
TSR didn't found Gen Con. That's what's funny about that. We know that. That was Gary. That was pre-Gen Con. It was pre-TSR. We know that now from John Peter's book.
There's a Shadzar. There's a Clownfish video I don't know how long ago it is. If you go to Clownfish, which I don't usually recommend, because they're terrible, but if you put in TSR, you'll find all their past TSR videos. There's a video where they actually go on and on about the fact that we can't believe that Gen Con is keeping the founders of Gen Con out of their convention this year. So this was something that was promulgated by LaNasa and enough to where it stuck with some people, that they really thought this was the original Gen Con or original TSR. I'm sorry. Yeah. Because that they mentioned more than once in the video that this is the original TSR and they're actually keeping them out of Gen Con. How could they do that? So it was certain people accepted this as truth, even though it wasn't truth.
Well, and as Alex pointed out again earlier, but we'll go back to this. This was the muddying of the waters. If you are Wizards of the Coast, there's one thing of saying, all right, well, there's another TSR out there, TSR2. They're not claiming to be the original TSR. They're working off the name recognition. We accept that, but they're not claiming that they are the inheritors. Once you start claiming that you are the inheritors and the direct descendants, and therefore should have all the rights claimed, when you have people, admittedly emotionally disturbed individuals, most likely, claiming that TSR should get back the rights to D&D and they should have it again, you're muddying the waters, and you are doing so. Likely, at least it seems so, intentionally. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm saying this as a layman, but to me, if I was somebody who owned IP and trademarks and copyrights, you would certainly get my attention once you start jeopardizing my business interests. So, as I've said on other videos, I see so much of this as unforced fouls. Okay, there is so much that could have been done with TSR and the Durden Hobby Shop Museum that didn't require any of this, but instead these unforced errors, unforced fouls, self-inflicted wounds seems to be what they tend to do. So yes, Mark, confusion in the market. So then we get to on December 6th. Wizards of the Coast filed in Trademark and the Trademark and Patent Office, whatever the hell it's called. They filed a legal action against TSR for one thing, for one mark, and that is the mark of the TSR, the Game Wizards, with the Man in the Moon head type of deal. That was because that's the one that wasn't abandoned. That's the one that TSR apparently said this is the hill that we will die on. And next day, TSR filed their suit, never mentioning that they had anything filed against them initially, never mentioning that this was a response to another legal action, but claiming that they were fighting the bullies of Wizards of the Coast. Because how dare Wizards of the Coast address, I guess, the muddying of the waters and the potential effect on its own business by a company such as TSR claiming marks and to get beyond just the facts that are presented here. The social media presence that TSR has made at large is certainly not one, if you were Wizards of the Coast, you would want associated with your company. While TSR's media presence, the social media presence, might be something that certainly gets people excited on all sides and then some, if you are Wizards of the Coast, you just see a bag of shit landing in your lap that you don't want or need. My personal opinion. So TSR files on the 7th, and then on the 9th, likely for many reasons, but not the least of which is they filed in the wrong venue in federal court. They voluntarily dismiss without prejudice, so they can refile. From what I understand, if they refile in Washington State, it's being suggested that they actually file with attorneys that are local, that understand the traditions of that federal court, because each court does have its own quirks, I guess, that are set by precedent. And we're not going to address the horribly misspelled and grammatically incorrect releases from Justin. I've addressed them before, and somebody said, "Well, maybe he's dyslexic." And as I stated to that ago, if he's dyslexic, then he lied to the Coast Guard and somehow deceived the Coast Guard when he served his 4 years, because that's a disqualifying condition to be a member of the service and be dyslexic. I don't think that is Justin's issue. So, and Michael Havermeyer or Havermill, if you are listening, I'm going to give you professional advice. Please proofread everything that Justin wants to put out in the public. I know you can write. I've dealt with you. I know that you can write. You have a professional presence, even if you're not working for a professional company. I strongly suggest that you control the communications that come out of your company and the office, because it's not doing you any good.
True story. I worked for a savings and loan where the bank president never graduated college. This is Texas in the 80s. And he couldn't spell. He couldn't spell words. And so his secretaries knew when you got a letter from him, you never sent it out. It was always retyped. And so if you have if you know, man's got those limitations, as Clint Eastwood once said in the great, oh gosh, I can't remember what movie it was. Anyway, man's got those limitations. If you know you can't spell and you have problems, get somebody to do the work for you. I mean, there's lots of people you can get just to proofread a letter or a press statement. It just makes you. It makes you look bad. It's my example was if you're an attorney and you go into court wearing a Speedo.
Your brother's a lawyer.
Flowers around your neck, and a beer koozie on your head. You could be the best lawyer in the world, but the impression you're creating is just like, oh, this guy's an idiot. It's the same thing with this. I mean, know your limitations. If you can't spell good or your grammar's terrible, look. Very famously, my former partner Doug Ray had terrible grammar and couldn't spell. At a certain point, guess who did it? All that work I did. He would, if he sent something out, he'd have me look it over beforehand, because he realized he couldn't do it. So there's no shame in admitting you can't. You're not a good speller. Or I'm terrible at math. Okay, I can't do math. I'm math bad. I'm math terrible. So my wife does the math. I don't do the math. So yeah, the dyslexic comment's another red herring. It's just, just ignore it. If he is dyslexic, then he's made a pretty good success out of himself, but he needs to find somebody to look his correspondence.
Right. I mean, and my personal opinion, again, no inside information. That's arrogance. That's self-importance. That is it. It's all me. Like Mike said, know your limitations. We all have limitations. I spent a number of years as an administrative position, rewriting reports for the executives that I worked under, and sometimes writing the report for the executives I worked under. I learned how to proofread myself, and I still make mistakes. I would never put out a press release without having at least Rach and Mike and probably one or two others proof me if I was running a company. I'm not, by the way. So I'm just a schlep. But if I was somebody that was running a company, I'd have at least one proofreader, if not more.
At the very least, run it through spell check and Grammarly, which not hard to get those and install them. Run it through Grammarly, run it through spell check, and there you go. You covered yourself. Now, that doesn't prevent the kind of mistake that we saw on the Dungeon Crawl board game card, because they'd obviously run it through spell check, but there has to be a little hands on there too. So, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. So, but yeah, that's.
Oh, Jason Braun dropped in just to say it's favorite Alex. There you go. Thank you.
Hey, that'll be someone's favorite, Alex.
That's my favorite Alex.
By the way, it's Jason Brownkowski now. He had his name changed, so that's awesome. That's awesome. Took part of his wife's name. So.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm doing that too. Next week, my name will be Bad Summer. Mike Bad Summer. So just to let you know.
You see, I had told Rach when we got married that she should hyphenate, and then she's like, "Yeah, but my name would be Griffinstein to most people."
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, no.
And she doesn't listen. She doesn't follow Harry Potter or any of that stuff. Where she might go, "Oh, this is kind of cool," So I was like, "All right, yeah, all right, don't hyphenate then, whatever." But I think we did a really great episode. Alex, holy shit, man! I really appreciate everything.
Oh,
you've been a great resource.
Yeah, giving incomplete and in probably on wrong answers. I'm happy to do that anytime you like. I can.
Oh, you fit right in. You fit right into the subject. That is actually absolutely where we're coming from. Is at least we have a veneer of respectability here. Just a veneer. Only a veneer.
We're not going for full respectability because I could get in trouble if I was fully respectable.
Well, then you have standards, and you don't want those.
Yeah. No. Oh God. No. Because God forbid, and actually, and something that Morris did not mention in this update article, but people have asked him, like, well, Lanasa and TSR keep on saying that people don't ask them questions, like people in the press don't reach out to him, and Morris said, we reached out so many times this past spring, and each time we were rebuffed, we got no answers, we got nothing. Well, I understand that. And the only people that get answers, well, actually, Vince doesn't even get answers from TSR. Vince gets non-answers to his questions and then just goes, all right, next question. Vince at least tried in Conflict TV, doesn't do anything. So I think that Morris did miss that because I know N-World has tried to reach out to TSR and TSR has given them bump.
Well, yeah, I don't know if do we cover this now, but you had talked to Michael Havermill about talking to Justin.
Yes. Oh, that's like a month ago now. And this is
and we never heard from him. So we put out feelers. So this whole thing that nobody ever contacts us is a bunch of fucking bullshit. Sorry, my language there. Sorry, Alex, for my language there, because I know you don't like cussing, and I didn't mean to subject you that. But no, I mean it is. It's a bunch of fucking bullshit because you reached out to Justin to say, okay, Justin wants to be on the show.
Well, what time?
Wants to talk to you.
This is what happened. Okay, Michael Havermill did the meme war with me, where he was going to start and I think people are deleting these memes that he's putting in all these communities and going, do you know that this guy is doing? I went, oh geez. I responded on Discord, and he's like, do you want to participate in a meme war? I'm like, no, I'm 54. I barely know what a meme is. I probably couldn't make one. But no, I don't want to participate in the meme war. And then he was like, oh, okay. And then he was honest, and he was having some, cyber stalking issues, and wanted to ask if I was doing it. And I was honest with Michael, and I said, if I have a problem with you, and I don't, so you don't not even on my radar, but I said, if I have a problem with you, I am in your face, I am public about it, and I am kind of like a dog with a bone. I probably don't let go. That's just how I am. I don't sneak behind your back. I don't do cyber stalking. I don't dox people. It's not my way. And we actually had a very civil conversation with Michael via Discord. And then he said, you know what? You and Justin should actually talk one-on-one. And I said, that's fine. But I did put a stipulation on it, Mike. And I've said this before, and I will say this again publicly. Justin, when this all went down last fall, threatened me with libel and slander and told me I should watch what I say. And
that never happens on the internet, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, everybody, listen. I've been threatened by some of the best names in the community and outside the community. Gail, Ken Whitman, somebody perhaps with the first name begins with an F. I'm not going to give the rest of the initials. Have threatened me with legal action, and legal action threats just tell me that I'm on target. So I said, listen, if Justin wants to have a conversation with me, I'm happy with it. But if he wants it to go anywhere, he needs to publicly apologize for threatening me with legal action. It could be a short one sentence. I don't care. But that kind of killed it. I've heard from Michael occasionally since then, that just little one-offs, but nothing from Justin. I don't expect to, because when you are an individual who believes that you're going to intimidate others or whatever, and I understand Justin has a strong personality. That's your method of operation. I just I take legal threats. It's like a gunfighter from the old west. I just put a notch on my gun belt. It's like, hey, another legal threat. Thank you so much. Never gotten a letter. Apparently, the TSR Army knows where I live, so I'm sure I will get one if the lawyer who thinks there's a threat they can make against me that would stick. But in any case, yes, that's the deal with that. So no, I'm not hearing from Justin. It isn't happening.
But I'm just taking issue with some people who say that well, nobody ever contacts us. The only people that ever contact us, this guy and this guy. So, that's not true. You choose not to respond to some people, but other people have contacted you. It's just that you chose not to respond. So that's just another half truth.
Why should you continue? Why should you reach out? And Justin and I exchanged a number of PMs last fall, most of which were links to his video channel showing me things like him riding in a tank and such. But okay, whatever. And off topic and certainly weird, but this whole situation is weird. I swear to God, I if you had asked me when I started gaming back in like 1980 or so, if in like 40 years, we would be talking about TSR trademarks and legal actions regarding such, and community being like I don't know, polarized on sides over a statement regarding the material that we played with back in the day, I'd be like, you're just full of shit. I'm 13. That stuff ain't never gonna happen. I'll be gaming the rest of my life away with the same books. And thanks to OSR, I basically am.
I told you before. My moment was when a couple years ago, I'm sitting here and I'm talking to some friends, and my phone rings, and I look at it, and I go, "Oh, Alan Hammock, I can't talk to him right now." Click. I'm like, what would have 1980 Bad Mike thought of that?
Yeah.
So you're getting a call from Alan Hammock, the guy who wrote Ghost Tower, and you're just too busy to take it right now.
I can't take it.
You'll call him back. You'll call him back later. That would have been that would have never even entered my fever dreams at that age. So,
yeah, copyright suits and edition wars in D&D. Say it ain't so, Eric. All right, you know what? If we had the internet back in 1980 and we could see all the stuff going on behind the scenes, maybe I believe it. We didn't know. We didn't know all the threats that were going back and forth. That's why we're reading books now. John Peterson stuff is great if you want to know what was going on back in the day that you were totally oblivious to, because the only news you got was from Dragon Magazine and White Dwarf and Different Worlds and Space Gamer. If it wasn't in a magazine, nobody was telling you crap. Well, I think we're at a good point to wrap it up. All right,
we covered what we need to cover there. We're not through with this.
No, we're not.
Wonderful saga that I just hope it just stretches all through the holidays, because I need this kind of thing in my life.
Well, that we'll probably bring Ty Beard on to discuss this. As we get further into it.
Well, we'll bring on every lawyer we know. Who else do we have? We have other lawyers we know. We'll just bring them all on. We'll just roll them through like a conga line. We'll have everyone on there eventually. We'll eventually have all of them on there.
And we got to bring back Alex, because Alex has some projects that will be releasing.
Alice is confirmed for next week.
No,
we do have Alice.
Alex,
Alex. Oh, him. Oh, yeah. I guess we can have him on again. Well, Alex. So I asked Alex if he wanted to promote any of his projects, and he's like, "No, I don't want to promote anything." But I'm going to make you promote them, Alex, because you have 2 projects coming up. Please tell us about your 2 projects about to come out.
They sell so much. I don't even want. It's embarrassing.
Stop it! Stop it!
My collaboration with Ed Greenwood. Speaking of the OGL, is with our Thay source book from the Forgotten Realms. Will be hopefully this month. It's all done. Just final art pieces. I was actually getting some messages from various artists. We finished this, so we're very close to having that one done. It's been written that's a fun book. That's gonna be really great. That'll be released to POD on the DMs Guild. And then I'm writing a big book for Frog God that'll be kickstarted sometime next year, probably next summer. And we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I still have serious work in the word mines before I can talk really intelligently about that. So
all right, very cool.
Nice.
We'll obviously bring you back. You're always a blast to have. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Definitely.
Appreciate that.
And,
we don't love you just because you're a lawyer. We'll have you on for a different thing. Just because you're a lawyer.
You're just cool to hang with.
Yeah,
by the way, on Friday, Courtney Campbell will be joining myself and Glenn for the live stream at 8 p.m. So that should be fun and crazy in its own way. If you know Courtney, I'm sure Courtney will derail us. Nothing personal against Courtney. Folks, as always, we are in the midst of the world of the pandemic. I am not a medical professional. I am not telling you what to do. I am, however, suggesting that you use your common sense to take actions, precautions that keep yourself healthy and therefore allow you to keep your family, your friends, your community healthy. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. I will be back again tomorrow. Again, big, huge thanks to Bad Mike and Alex Kammer. Thank you so much. All right, folks.
All right, later, everyone.